Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. I'm Matt Perkins, joined once again by my good friend, BadgerBlitz.com publisher John McNamara. John, it's great to see you as always, sir.
Absolutely, Matt. Right back at you.
It is the first week of Wisconsin high school football season. We're recording this on a Friday after we had a couple games on Thursday night. We'll talk about those here in just a second. Before we get into sort of, I guess, our unofficial Wisconsin high school football preview for the year, we're going to talk a couple things Badgers right now. Probably the biggest news this week is the injury to James Thompson. Now, I still don't know if it's been confirmed, official. I haven't been able to, I've been putting a couple feelers out there. I haven't gotten any official confirmation of exactly what the injury is. Either way, though, John, it does not sound like it is a good situation for the Badgers' top returning defensive lineman.
No, and from the stuff that we've heard, it's, he'll be out for a good chunk of time. I don't want to say, anything beyond that because, like you said, Matt, nothing really official yet. I'd be curious to see if Luke Fickell even really gets into details on Monday when he's set to speak to the media. But, from what we can understand, what we can gather, an injury that's going to put him out for a significant amount of time at a position group that, there was a lot of question marks coming into this season or I should say into fall camp. I think some of those questions have been answered, but now more questions arise. I think you felt good about, maybe playing 6 this year. And obviously Thompson was the top guy from that group. So, does it open a door for a guy like Dylan Johnson, who may be next in line? I think they still like to get to 6, but that's going to take now a true freshman and maybe Dylan Johnson and maybe a redshirt freshman like Jamel Howard, who, we saw him take a lot of third team reps, during fall camp. So it's tough, but it's college football. I mean, you look at a school like Texas. I think they lost 2 significant guys, and Rutgers just lost their top linebacker, who they expected big things from. So this kind of stuff happens. That's just a difficult position for Wisconsin to absorb a significant blow at.
I'd be curious to see if what they do with Ernest Willard. They just moved him out to outside linebacker. Maybe now there's a need to put him back in. I don't know how much you want to jerk him around a little bit, especially, if his long-term future is at outside linebacker, which, obviously I'm not at practice. I'm not seeing what they're seeing, but he's always seemed to me like a long-term defensive lineman. So that is, definitely going to be a tough blow for them. And we're also in the final week before the first game of the season, John. I guess sort of what's your biggest one remaining question that we have going into the year?
I guess what are you going to see, week 1 and week 2? I think those weeks are kind of meshed together. What's that going to look like before Alabama? That's probably the biggest, question mark that I have. Will it look crisp? Will they put points on the board? Will they, win those games comfortably? Or will it kind of be up and down for 2 weeks and then Alabama comes? So I think that a lot can be, judged by those first 2 weeks of how does Wisconsin perform? Is that offense clicking? Is that defense better, specifically at those linebacker positions? And, I think it's probably not just one thing, but I think Wisconsin needs to go into week 1, win comfortably, and more importantly, look crisp doing it. And more so probably on that offensive side of the ball with Tyler Van Dyke. So, you go back a year ago and, they weren't crisp week 1, and they frankly weren't crisp the rest of the year. So I think that's going to be kind of a tone setter. You want to look sharp for those first 2 weeks because obviously Alabama's lurking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, enough of the Badgers week 1. Let's head to week 1 in Wisconsin high school football. Things kicked off last night. John, I was excited to hear about Bayport Middleton, but Torrin Petway, the Badger commit, had, I guess, a slight nagging injury, and his coaches held him out of that game, which is really too bad because that was definitely sort of the game of the night in terms of the first night of action on Thursday, John. Any sort of other sort of odds and ends or things that caught your eye on the first night before we talk about Friday and the rest of the weekend?
No, that was the game that I think just about everyone had penciled in, and with a guy like Petaway, probably as highly anticipated of a senior season as you could you could say, for guys who are committed in Wisconsin's 2025 class, just because last year being his first year, very raw, he kind of explodes based off that junior film. Commits to Wisconsin, flips to Minnesota, back to Wisconsin. Jumps up from like 260 pounds. Now he's almost 290 pounds. I mean, there are a lot of things going into that game on Thursday, and it's something that I had on my calendar for quite some time. We caught wind just kind of late that he wasn't going to play, so didn't make the trip out there. We'll obviously be able to see him when he is healthy. It sounds like a hamstring. So when he's back up and running, we'll get a chance to see him play. But obviously Bayport comes out on top there. That's a program that's been really strong now for 10 or 15 years. Obviously sent Landon Gauthier to Wisconsin. His younger brother's on the team. He's a junior this year. So up in that Green Bay area, they seem to be certainly one of the teams to watch again this fall. Probably a team that I think is probably positioned to make a nice playoff run, but it's a long way to go there after week one.
All right. Well, a couple other guys that, you dropped a sort of a top 10 list of guys that you are looking forward to seeing this fall, most interested in following. Obviously, a couple Badger commits on there, Cooper Catalano, Michael Roski, and then Grant Dean, who I know you're going down to see tonight, where his Nina team is playing Muskego in, arguably the top matchup of the weekend in Wisconsin State football. What are you looking for in Grant Dean, first of all, as you go to see, what kind of improvement or sort of what traits are you looking for now that you're seeing his first game as a Badger commit?
Yeah, recruiting wise, when we were looking at Dean last year, he's a kid that popped up on Wisconsin's campus a couple times. But really during that time, it wasn't someone that I looked at as a for sure offer guy or someone that, probably ends up at Wisconsin. It was, one of those in-state kids that they were obviously keeping in contact with. And then, he runs a 10.8 in the 100 and his, I don't want to say his recruitment explodes, but that was enough for Wisconsin to say, okay, this kid's not going to leave the state. They offer, he commits shortly after. So they lock him up. So it's not necessarily a different lens, but obviously, now that he's committed, you're taking a longer look at him, and this is obviously our first chance to see him play after he's been committed to Wisconsin. Kid that obviously will play safety for them, but he's a real two-way player for Nina, and you saw a lot of that last year. His ability to affect the game on both sides of the ball, in addition to special teams. So I'm curious to see how they use him on offense. Will they use him in the return game? Just how much they can get him on the field, because obviously he's one of the better players in the state. Going up against a Muskego team, you talk about perennial powers. I mean, they are as good of a program from, I'm from like first grade to 12th grade. I mean, Muskego does it their unique way of doing it. And it's certainly produced the results. Very, very strong program from top to bottom. I don't know if they have that big time star power guy like a Hunter Wohler like they've had in the past, but they got I think a kid committed to one of the Ivy League schools. They should be good up front. They always are. They're going to try to run the football. So it wouldn't be surprising if a guy like Grant Dean had 12, 13, 14 tackles today, because Muskego I think is going to try to pound the football and see what they can do on that end.
Absolutely. I'm curious from this list that you sent out. The one name that stuck out to me that I really haven't heard a ton about is Tyler Hindley from Grafton. He's a linebacker that I think is starting to grow into sort of his body a little bit. What sort of steps are you looking for him this fall, and do you expect him to be a future Badger offer?
So he was my 10th. 9 seemed. You don't want no one makes a top 9 list, right? But the 9 guys I came up with were pretty okay, no doubt guys. And looking for the 10th, he was the guy that popped up. He visited in the fall, visited again in the summer camp there, and he's someone that, look, I don't know that he's a lock to pick up an offer, or if he's just where he kind of stacks up on that board, because there's a lot of guys at both linebacker spots in that 2026 class that have offers that I think Wisconsin's in nice spots for. But if you're looking from a kid inside the state, he's got that Michigan State offer already. And then, that's going to open some opportunities with other schools when they look and say, okay, he's got Michigan State. Let's take a deeper look at him. 6'2", around 200 pounds. I think he could play inside or outside. Wisconsin, I think, generally looks at those kids, and now it's more of an inside linebacker. But again, you don't know what his body's going to look like, how he's going to look in another year or so. Played a ton as a sophomore, has some nice sophomore film. So certainly someone that I plan to get out to see. And I would imagine he's going to pop up on Wisconsin's campus, likely sometime in September. I think he's a guy that they certainly want to take a deep dive into.
A couple more guys I'm pretty sure that they already have been taking deep dives into as they've got offers and a lot of interest from around the country. Sort of offensive line, obviously the position that Wisconsin's most known for, between James Thompson, Samuel Simpson as juniors, and then the sophomore Cole Reeder from Germantown. Sort of those three guys obviously stand out, along with, we know the big names. We know Roski, we know Strebig, things like that. But those guys who remain uncommitted, I'm obviously excited to see their growth, because everyone who listens to me know how much I can wax poetic about offensive line all day and night. Which one of those three guys do you think is most likely to be a future Badger, and why?
Well, I think they get all three, if I'm being honest. I think Simpson of that group is maybe the closest, but I don't want to make it seem like he's given any indication that he's close to committing. I mean, these guys are still very in the infant stage, especially Ryder, the kid that's in the 2027 class of, very beginning of their recruitment. But if you look at the tradition of the offensive line and the way that Wisconsin's been able to keep kids inside the state for the most part, I think that bodes well. From that group, I probably plugged it a little bit more into James Thompson's recruitment. James Thomas's recruitment. Know some coaches at Oak Creek, and they've said this kid's good. We cannot wait to unleash him on the Southeast Conference and their 2 non-conference games. So they open with Waterford tonight, and Thomas is a guy that I'll see. I got to take a look at my schedule. I plan to see him kind of early on here. I think we have him listed right now as a tackle, but body type wise, he looks like a guard. And like I said, people in Oak Creek are ready for, the world to see what he's able to do. I mean, big, strong kid. Obviously, Arkansas was the first school to offer, and Wisconsin followed pretty closely after. I think that, once schools see, 2-3 weeks of his junior tape, that more offers will kind of come in as that's made available to other schools.
What other week 1 games are you looking forward to? I know obviously Marquette University and Arrowhead is going to be a pretty notable one. I think there are people who are looking forward to Kakana and Notre Dame Academy. What's on your radar tonight?
Well, Muskego Nina, that'll take up all my time tonight. And, a lot of people ask, a lot of people, I guess, assume I just try to go to the best game, but it's very Wisconsin centered. I'm trying to just hit a list of kids. So that's always my goal. But like you mentioned, Marquette, reigning Division I state champs. That team is projected to be very good again this year. They have the kicker Eric Schmidt, who I know that you love, Matt. But I would say keep an eye on Tommy Novotny, the running back. He's a junior running back. I think he is a pretty surefire Division I guy. Is he a Division I Wisconsin type guy? That's tough to say, because they've put in a lot of work with some 2026s, guys that they'll have on campus for Alabama, national guys. So I don't know where Novotny stacks up on that list, but he feels like a Division I guy to me. You saw him in that state championship game against Franklin. He had a real good game, and I think he's in line for a big season here. They go up against Arrowhead, Arrowhead University, some call it. That team has traditionally been very good. Matt Harris is, I don't want to say resurrected it, but I mean, I think he's put some new life into that program. Wisconsin got Derek Jensen there from that 2024 class. There's a handful of guys who, people feel like are Division I prospects there. So that should be a good battle. I'd probably pick Marquette right around, noon today, but we'll see, what kind of happens when the dust settles later Friday night.
John, if you had to make one bold prediction for the fall for high school football, what's your bold prediction? What is your hottest take about Wisconsin high school football this fall?
Oh, geez. That I don't know. That's a tough one to put on the spot there.
That's what I do, John. I have to put you on the spot. It's my job.
I don't know that I have a bold prediction for you right now. I guess in the last couple of years, it's kind of been the same old guys that are right at there at the top, like a Franklin and a Muskego. I expect both those schools to be very good again. Marquette, Arrowhead, those two schools will be very good again. So I don't know. The more things change, the more they stay the same, I suppose. So I expect a lot of the schools you're familiar with to be very good again this year. Even though a team like Franklin loses a lot of guys, a lot of seniors from that group, they expect it to be good again this year. So I'm excited for the ride. I love the games at the start of the year. It's nice. It's nice. The weather's nice. It doesn't get too cold, but you get midway through the season. Sometimes you leave and it's 75 degrees, and then you get out to the game and it dips down to 45 degrees. So I cherish these early ones because the ones later in the season, they're tough to sit through sometimes.
So finally, John, then for you, John, who do you think is going to finish as Gatorade Player of the Year for the state? I'm going to go with Tre Poteat. I think even you saw in the opener last night, he was not just doing obviously great on defense, but on offense, he was running the ball super effectively as well. And I think he's probably the best all-around athlete in the state right now.
It'd be tough to pick against him. I don't know that there'll be a better two-way guy there. Maybe James Flanagan. Obviously, he'll be right up there in that conversation. But that's the takeaway I took from that box score too. Obviously, I wasn't at the game, but it looked like they were giving him carries this year, and you saw a little bit of that last year. And I watched them play Kenosha Indian Trail. And that game was, Verona was kind of comfortably ahead. It wasn't a blowout by any means, but obviously he's playing on defense. He was playing in the return game. But my thought was like, look, if they wanted to run this guy 20 times, he's going to find the end zone 5 or 6 times. And they just didn't need to do that. But now that's kind of a new wrinkle, and if he stays healthy and he's putting up those big time numbers as a running back, it'd be tough to pick against Tre Poteat. But I'm sure it's tough for Wisconsin fans to listen to the Gatorade Player of the Year, all potentially being guys who are leaving the state. Poteat's going to Tennessee. Flanagan's going to Notre Dame. Those might be the top 2 front runners, but I don't know. I mean, maybe a quarterback comes out there and lights the world on fire. But Poteat's a good pick, right out of the gates, Matt.
Yeah. And, I don't think I could count on Cooper Catalano if he has just, a record-breaking season on defense, with total tackles, sacks. He can really do it all, and he's sort of the centerpiece of obviously that Germantown defense. So yeah, I would, he would I don't know if you call him a dark horse, but he would be sort of in my next tier, I guess.
And he'll, if he stays healthy, he will break the career tackling mark. I think it's like 467. He's in the 400s right now. The kid had 100 tackles when he was a freshman. So, you fully expect him to do that. And he's a two-way guy now too. He was playing some running back last year. I think they were down to their 4th quarterback, when one of the games I went to, talking to some people in the stands. So if that team is healthy, you certainly think that Catalano is going to have a good season, potentially get them into the postseason. I know they made the postseason last year, but if that's a team that's healthy, and that's a team that the Cole Ryder kid is on, so certainly going to get a chance to see them play. And Catalano is just a tackling machine, so I think it'll be very obviously well deserved when the dust settles here that he'll lead the state in tackles, and that's a clip that I just that. When he does, that'll be a tough mark to break, because that requires 4 years of football, and not a lot of guys are ready to play as 14-year-old freshmen against 18-year-old seniors.
And I mean, he'll probably, if he does stay healthy, he's going to finish with over 500 tackles in his career. That's
very much so,
that's more than 105 season. Those are some mind blowing numbers. And so I'm obviously I want all these guys to stay healthy. I never want anyone to get hurt. Even on the opposition, I don't like other guys getting hurt. I want to beat your best. So I hoping for health and safety for all these guys this fall in Wisconsin high school football. So that's going to do it for us here today on Badger Blitz TV. We'll be back again next week with week 1 for the Badgers, little week 2 Wisconsin high school football, maybe sprinkling a little basketball recruiting every now and then. Who knows? Anyways, make sure that you are subscribing to Badger Blitz, part of the Rivals.com network, to get all of the best information anywhere on the known Badger universe. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. And until next time, we'll see you in the den.